Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bold Business Podcast. Today, we are bringing you a very special guest episode, guest conversation with the one and only Kehla G. I'm so happy to have you in our virtual studio.
I'm so excited to finally be chatting with you on the show. And I just think I can't believe we've known each other for like 4 years.
Yeah.
And we just keep staying in touch and keep having collaboration. So that's just really exciting for me.
I love it so much. Yes, I definitely stalked Kayla before. I reached out. I was following her, I think for at least a year, maybe 2 years. I'm such a big fan of her work, especially, she pulled me in with her amazing insight around the gene keys. And I'm just really excited that you guys all get to experience her wisdom, her insight, her openness, her honesty today, along with me. So I can't wait to get into it. So let me introduce our conversation we're going to have and also introduce properly Kayla to you. So we are in Taurus season at the moment when this podcast is going to come out. And Taurus season, our theme here at Cosmic Queen, is all about grounding. Grounding, that sense of stability, that sense of security, that sense of comfort that I think a lot of us really, really need and really crave right now. We are in the year of the fire horse, in Western astrology as well. This is an extremely fire heavy year. We've just finished a very fiery Aries season. And so we have to remember to balance all of that go, risk taking, leap making, ready to stand up for ourselves kind of energy with that solid base if we are to sustain, our projects, our creativity, our energy, all the good things. So I think this conversation is super important. If you're someone who, is very fiery or airy by nature, you're someone who has a lot of ideas, a lot of courage, loves to take action, this is going to be really great for you to always be able to balance and support yourself through those ups and downs. If you're someone who is very grounded, you already know this stuff, but it's great to refresh and come back to your center. So it's going to be such a good conversation. So let me introduce Kayla to you for the uninitiated. I mean, how can you you've been missing out on her gemness. So Kayla is the host of the Built for the Edge podcast, a top 2% globally ranked show with over 500 episodes and a business coach for spiritually minded female entrepreneurs. Her work centers on helping women trust their own way of seeing, make clear decisions, and build businesses that can actually sustain their lives. Yes. Through human design, the gene keys, and intelligent use of AI, Kayla supports entrepreneurs in translating insight into structure so that growth feels grounded, intentional, and aligned. Welcome, Kayla. Do you want to introduce yourself and maybe tell us anything you want us to know about your cosmic blueprint, like your gene keys, anything that you absolutely love about your cosmic blueprint?
Yes. So I'm a 6-2 sacral generator, and I only have my G center and my sacral defined. And what's interesting, and then I only have two channels. So the 515 channel of rhythms, and then the channel of exploration, the 1034. And I have a completely open throat center. So it's interesting to have very compressed activation, but it
Yeah.
works and it shows up in how I lead in business. And I guess I'll share my gene keys. My life's work is a 36 gene key, and that's really going from the shadow of turbulence to compassion and humanity. So I really bring that into the work that I do as well. So those
Mhm.
are like two little nuggets about me and
Yes,
my
I
cosmic
love it.
blueprint.
Oh, I love that so much. And I think I really connected to your work. Like I remember when we spoke together on maybe it was a podcast we did, or I know you were also on my Human Design Summit that I did a few years ago, and I got to be a guest on your podcast series last year. We've been able to touch base in different ways. But one of the things that really made me feel so connected to you and really trust like you and what you do was learning about your 36 gene key, because I also have the 36 pretty prominent in my chart. In human design, we refer to it as the gate of crisis, but of course there's different language and understanding. It's much, kind of a different vibe in gene keys. And I've just loved that you understand. Like I feel like you are a leader for our times. You understand crisis and turbulence, and then like you said, moving from that kind of dramatic sense of wow, there's these big ups and downs in life, but how do we navigate that? How do we navigate our emotions, and how do we still maintain our center as leaders in our business and with our communities? I feel like you're just a great example of that. So thank you
Oh,
for doing
thank you.
that. Yes. So we have a really amazing topic here. You brings so much to the business space, and something that I was really excited to discover, listeners, as we prepared for today's podcast, was that Kayla has a Virgo midheaven. Right. And so I love this because the Virgo midheaven is really someone who can lead and guide people to be more stable, to have more practicality, and to really understand what is and is not going well in their businesses. So, do you want to introduce kind of a little bit more about our topic today, and why you're so passionate about helping people find stability in business?
Yes. I think one thing that's funny is how so before we hit record, I was like, Rachel, this is where I'm going. This is what's been coming up for me the last few months. And I'm telling her all these things in terms of the structural components of how I approach business. And I'll share that in a minute. But when she's like, oh, you have Virgo in your midhaven, and explain that, because I'm not a professional in astrology, I was like, that is so on point. Like, I just love that energetics can surprise us in that way. We don't have to know everything to
Yeah.
just authentically share, which is great. So what I was sharing with Rachel before we hit record that I think is so important is like the approach that I like to bring to business. And this has happened recently where I clarified my own perspective is there's three really important components. And if these are not stabilized in your business, you will notice chaos, or just you're struggling, or it's like you are trying to hold it together. And there's center, which I love that you've already been bringing this up in our conversation, path, and constraint. So center, what this means is a lot of people assume, oh, this is your niche, this is your ideal client, this is like your one-off
Mhm.
offer, but it's more about the work that you're doing, and you need to clarify that because everything else around that needs to point to it. If you have four different offers and you're solving four different problems, you're going to have four different centers. That's why it's hard to hold. How can you hold four different things when you have two hands, for example, right? And one mouth to talk about it?
Mhm.
When we look at the paths, a lot of times people think, oh, that's my funnel. Like, I have social media, and then they get this freebie, and then they go into the low ticket and the mid ticket and so on. And it's like, it's not about what you have in place. It's about the coherence of how people move through what it is that you have in place. And a lot of time people will show me, oh, I have this, that, and the other, and it should be going into my high ticket. And then I look and I'm like, well, you're actually talking about four different things, five different things here and there. There's no clear CTA. There's a lack of coherence. People can't actually see the next
Mm.
step. And
Yeah.
so that's a really important piece. And then when it comes to constraint, this is my favorite thing. A lot of people will look at their business and be like, it's not working. Something's missing. Like, that is such an iconic line for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Something is missing.
Yes.
So then what do? You add more things. Oh, I'm going to do another variation of this offer, and I'm going to start podcasting more and send more emails. And I need to get this strategy and this certification. So you start adding more, but notice how you can't even hold what it is that you already have. So constraint is really looking at each thing that you have in your business and being like, this does not have a purpose, it's out. And
Hmm.
constraining and holding back, like not adding anything more and working with what it is you already have, or seeing how you can simplify your business in a way where it's very coherent. You can see any post, any email, any podcast episode, and you know exactly how the person got there and where it is that they're going. So
Hmm.
all of this is obviously very grounding, like we talked about, but I just noticed, like, whenever somebody comes to me and they're like, Kayla, my shit's not working, I'm like, it's one of these three things or it's all three. And it's every time I can nail it.
Wow, that's you just gave us so many gems there. I want to like dive into some of this. Absolutely, I agree. I think that, you know, everyone has something, some area of their business where they're like, ah, I just know that something's off here or that. But what you're doing is you're really taking your Virgo midheaven archetype of the curators, like, you know, what do they call it? 10,000 foot view. And you're looking at, okay, but like, how are these pieces actually going together? And I love that word coherence. It's like a word I don't use very often. I love that you brought that in because I feel like that is the thing. And a lot of times when people are looking at their business, they're just thinking of the pieces rather than the whole picture. Um, I just think this is everything. This is it. How do you talk about coherence, but then there's also alignment. Can you kind of explain the difference between, I think a lot of people, like you were saying, are focusing on the alignment piece rather than the coherence. What does that look like, and how can we kind
Yeah.
of avoid that? Mm,
Yeah. Well, it's funny because some people will they'll use the words interchangeably, like coherence and alignment. And I
mhm.
personally prefer the word coherence. I think alignment is used a lot. I mean, obviously in human design and gene keys, that's huge, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that sometimes people, let's say from a human design lens, so like, oh, I'm a manifester and therefore I have these rest cycles and I initiate and da da da, or I'm a projector and I don't have motor centers defined. And so I can do this, but not that. So the thing is, technically, you are in alignment with your design.
Hmm.
But then if you look at the business, which needs to hold who you being and what it is that you're doing, there's a lack of coherence because you can
Hmm.
be in alignment with your design, but that's not going to make your business structurally sound to actually have the pathways and the center and the constraint to run the business like the machine that it is. Like that needs to hold you. It is the masculine structure. And so
Mm.
I think that sometimes people think that, oh, because I follow my strategy and my authority, or because I'm aware of my specific gene key in the IQ and in the pearl, therefore this shit should work, and it's not
Yeah.
working. But it's literally it's the coherence between those two things that needs to happen, or it will not be sound. And so I
Mm.
think that's the difference. It's very subtle, but it's like literally so profound
Yeah,
simultaneously.
that makes a lot of sense. Like, would it be correct to almost say that kind of the way you are thinking about or explaining alignment here, and the way that I think a lot of people are subconsciously thinking about alignment, is very much a mind and emotional thing? Like, am I emotionally aligned to my business and how I want to move? Am I mentally aligned to what I want to do and my vision and my values? Whereas the coherence is like, okay, but like, what's the strategy, the structure? Like, what's the plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because,
Yeah.
like, let's say I'm a circle generator and I can build all day, every day. I could
Mhm.
build like a new course, a new whatever.
Yeah.
I can pump it
Oh,
out,
same. I'm
right?
so overproductive when I'm on. Yeah.
And so just because I can pump shit out, just because I can build a funnel with like 6 emails in 2 hours and use that to sell something doesn't actually mean that it's coherent and aligned with the center of like the actual work that I do in my business.
Yeah.
So another thing that I speak about often to make it simple for people is like, if you add something or you're trying to build something or do something, is that noise or is that signal? And what I
Hmm.
mean by signal is like, is that really going to pull the people through or walk them through the path to the center of your work? Or is it just like, all of these pictures and paintings on the wall inside of the hallway, and all of a sudden people get stalled and they're looking at, your photos from fourth grade instead of walking into the living room and dining room to have dinner, which was the
Yeah.
end goal. So there's a metaphor there, but
I'm
that's what
feeling called
happens.
out here, okay, Kayla? So this is, I feel like your approach and your message today is just so valuable for people like me, people who have a little bit of magpie energy, people who are very creative, maybe a bit of an artistic mentality, and they're ideas people. Right? The people we have, gate 11, gate 56, like we're ready to go. And so those ideas people, like, it's like, you get out of corporate and you're like, yes, I'm free. And like, and I do think that we kind of subconsciously can over index on the freedom, right? Because it also becomes freedom from structure. I just wrote an email today for my email list about like leaving my job and being in corporate and this incredible freedom. And that's true. We also have to create a new structure. And I feel like that is really what you're talking about here. Like, this is so valuable. Can you speak to the center more? Because I think you're onto something there. I love this terminology. I think this is so powerful. Like,
Yes.
what is it? Can you give us maybe an example, even a
Yeah.
hypothetical example of like what is the center of someone's
Yes.
business and how
Yes.
do you know
So
you've
let's
got it? Yeah.
So let's say I'll speak about myself because I
Yeah.
have
Okay.
clarified this and I can't even tell you. Like sometimes I sit down with my fiance and I'm like, I am the most clear that I've been in
Yeah.
7 years. Like
I think this is
I
my theory is that what you're talking about is what people think they're doing when they're talking about niching.
oh
Like the
yeah,
whole niche
100%.
debate, I think what they're looking for is the center, but this that how you're describing it is better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's more coherent.
It's
You'll
yeah,
hear.
yeah. It's
So my like here's the thing, who I work with, like
Mhm.
if you want to simplify, who I work with are entrepreneurs, typically female, typically women who are spiritually inclined. They do the astrology, the human design, the
Yeah.
gene keys, like they're into personal development. That is my ideal client. Okay, I'm
Hmm.
clear on
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
And then, in my business, structurally, I have a flagship program this 12 months. I've got like a 2 hour intensive. I've got the signal report. I've got like, a ladder of offers that people can move through.
Uh-huh.
And my center, the work that I really do is the looking at the structural aspects of your business, like this conversation that we're having right now, and really calling things out. Like, this is noise. Like, why do you have this? You have an idea, now you're sprawling. And instead of defining this, you're going over here and you're starting 3 different tasks. Like, come back to your work. And so I
Yes.
know that whether people get a 2 hour intensive or a 1 month intensive, like it's still pointing to the work that I do with clients. It's just
Mm.
defined in different proximities,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that what happens is that some people are going to try and solve this problem here, and then they're going to solve this problem here, and then another problem here. And if you're actually solving 3 different problems, but you actually want
Mm.
to be able to solve one problem in like 3 different ways,
Yeah.
that's the difference. And so, it doesn't matter that if I haven't changed my ideal client
mm-hmm.
in the last like couple of years. Like, I've been working with spiritual entrepreneurs into human design and gene keys and helping them scale their business. I've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now I know what my zone of genius is, and I can solve it in different ways. So it's therefore my business is run on one center. Whereas
Mm.
people just think, oh, I need a low ticket, a mid ticket, a high ticket. And it's like that's not quite it.
They're
That's,
focusing on the format rather than the function, or like the, I don't know how you would say that, but yeah. So they're thinking about
it's
like, what is the offer? Like, is it a one-to-one? Is it a group? Is it a course? Versus thinking about what am I solving?
it's what you're solving, but it's more like your methodology in terms of how you do it. Like, so I shared myself. I'll give you a quick example with
Yeah.
another client who does totally different industry. They do transformational leadership coaching and speaking, and they
Hmm.
also support people in communication. That is
Mm.
like the center of their work. So
Ah.
they have different ways where they might do couples coaching. There's 2 of them that work together. They do couples coaching. They host retreats. They have, they're going to be building a certification program,
Mm.
and right now they're trying to like, oh, this two, like, I don't know if this couples retreat or this program, like they don't have a hierarchy,
Hmm.
but it's like, okay, the center of your work is transformational communication and leadership. And these are the different ways that you deliver it, but ultimately it all points back to the same thing. And so
Mm.
it's not just the different containers, it's the coherence between everything. So
Mm.
that's a slightly different niche than what I
Yeah.
am. So maybe those 2 different examples can give a bit more clarity.
I think that's great. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Like I'm trying to think of even more, if we could even pick an example, another example of a business that is not centered. I think that would also help to,
Yeah.
so that people can start to recognize this in their own businesses so they can start to, yeah, notice this themselves. Can you think of one?
Yeah. I think that, like, let's say people, like, there's a woman that I did a signal report for recently, and
Mm.
she's like, Kayla, like, I go in corporate, I do, I've been published as an author, like I lead these events in corporate to really help people step into their leadership. Like, this
Hmm.
is like what she does. And she's like, I've supported people in corporate, I've supported entrepreneurs. And I'm like, okay. And but she's like, I'm having trouble selling my private coaching and getting people into my program. And she thinks that she needs to only speak to one person.
Ah, that
she's
it's
like
the audience. Hmm.
she's like, I like, oh my God, I feel like you're telling me to niche down and to speak to one person. I was like, no, you can speak to entrepreneurs, you
Yeah.
can speak to corporate,
Yeah.
but what is your work? Like, what is your methodology?
Yeah.
And if they do private coaching, like, what is that structure going to look like to be able to hold your methodology? You might do that private coaching with an entrepreneur or corporate, but it's what you're doing with them that
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah.
But then people think, oh, I can only help like moms who are 38 years old and who have like started this, that, and the other. And like, it's not, it's more about the work that you're doing, not like the person, but people
Hmm.
think that's what it is. And it's like, that's not what it is. So it's like, I'm
Mm.
still finding a
Yes.
way to share this because people default to ideal client and niche. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not it. It's the
Yeah.
coherence of everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like those are pieces of it. Like I just finished a series called Founder Fundamentals where we were talking about like what are the basics you got to get right in your business. And we talked about audience. And what I always try to say to people when we talk about audience is that it's not about, yeah, the demographics, like the age, the things like that. It's a kind of person. And where that's useful to know is when with your messaging. But when it comes to your business, like your whole business model and the structure, it's more about like, yeah, what is exactly are you offering? You know, knowing someone's age or gender like doesn't matter. It's like it's what are you offering? How are you solving something? What is the I like how you say methodology. I use that term a lot too. um the center. What is the center of your business? Thank you so much for this is a lot of food for thought. I think for us, and I hope the listeners are really like having these light bulb moments. I know I am as well. I think this is a much more nuanced and big picture way of discussing niching, because I think when people say niche, you're right. Like I always talk about there's two ways to niche. You know, you niche the problem that you're working on, or you niche the audience, but you're even taking a bigger picture view of like, yeah, but it's like, what are we even doing? Like, what is my zone of genius? What is my methodology? Which is so beautiful. And I think that nailing that is like the secret to having a business that like you can easily communicate about, easily talk about, feel inspired by, because like you said, you know what you're doing. So good. What about the path? Like, do you want to say anything about that and how you can tell if people know what the path is or not? Like if they're grounded and stable in that part of their business or not?
Yeah, I think I'll give you an example. I have some clients who they have an offer they've been doing for years, and it's like once a week they have these calls where you can come on, and it's like a contemplative conversation, sort of
Mm.
guided meditation. They've been doing this forever. They have people signing up, and so they shared some of the transcripts with me in terms of the calls that they're doing.
Oh yeah.
And I was looking at the transcripts, and I was like, these are awesome. And it makes sense. It's a free thing that they could then move into the next thing, but you actually don't have a clear CTA, and this you're not articulating enough your methodology in your work and why they would need to move forward into something like low
Mm,
ticket or into something that's group or even private coaching. This
mm,
just something that they're doing consistently every week, but there's no real pathway leading to the next thing, even though technically they're on the email list and they could click on something else. It's like you
mm-hmm,
need to make it so obvious that here's what we covered here. This is the work that I do with my clients inside of this space. And you move them through, you move
mm,
them down the hallway into the next room. And that next room has a very specific intention. They're walked into the living room, they're going to sit down and have tea. Like you want to be clear with
mm.
that. Otherwise, people will just float and they'll just hang out
Yeah.
and they won't make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I have know so many people, yeah, who are like very good at attracting, but then when it comes to converting people to buyers, clients, the next level of the work, it's like it becomes it's like a mystery. Like how do I
Yes.
do that? So that's kind of what you're talking about, the path. Like what is the path? Is it clear to your clients? Is it compelling?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can give a really specific example. This
Oh yeah,
literally
please
just
do.
dropped in. So on Instagram, a couple times a week, I will post a Gene Keys post and I will get hundreds of comments on this post.
Yeah.
And it's like, for example, today I did a post about the EQ and I was talking about how you emotionally react in business, drop your EQ and like how
Oh
you
yeah.
react. And then I'll show you how this is creating like instability in your
Hmm.
business.
I've
So this
commented
is
on those before. Yeah. You're like, tell me what
right.
yours is. I'm like, ooh, it's
Right.
fun.
So
Yeah.
here's where people like us, the service providers, get stuck. So they do a post, their shit goes viral, and
Mhm.
they assume, oh, this is on my Instagram, therefore they should go to the link in bio, and therefore they're probably gonna like get on my email list. Like they just realistically think the engagement's here, they're gonna go and click the thing.
Yeah.
And for me, I will go and I will answer all of these comments, and then I will literally leave a comment and say, hey, so in this post, we've covered X, Y, and Z, and this is what you're dealing with. Your next step is to get the signal report, comment signal below, or head to the link in my bio. It's
Hmm.
like so fucking obvious what they need to do next.
Yeah.
And now they're aware. They're like, well, she just gave me this insight and I don't really know what to do with
Like, oh,
it. And
that's
so
interesting.
yes, but
The
that's the
end.
thing is, but the thing is now I've created a line of decision. I've created a
Mhm.
line of decision. It's like, well, you keep coming to these posts and you keep getting these insights, but what are you doing? Here's
Yeah.
the next step. So that it's like that level of clear articulation. And then it's
Mhm.
very obvious. People get the signal report. They might go into a 2 hour intensive or a 1 month intensive or come into my flagship program, but every single thing has a very specific purpose and hinge point for people to keep moving forward. And that's the
Mhm.
part, that's the coherence. That's what I often see people are lacking.
Yeah, I think that makes so much sense. And I think, for some people this may come easily, but I think for a lot of us, especially if you're very creative and, you're an ideas person or you're someone who's very open-minded, you're like, "Oh, but there are millions of paths." Like, what do you mean? Or you think it's so obvious, like you said. Like, no, no, no. And I feel like this is your sixth line at work. You're like, "No, there's a system and we need to follow the steps and follow the system and help our clients to do that too." I mean, I've been experiencing like I was telling you a little bit earlier, I'm going to do a podcast later on this, but I've been experiencing some really interesting like symptoms of, like what they call like popcorn brain, right? Like where we're online, we're used to just scrolling, 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 really fast, short paced content is really in some ways rotting our brains. And it makes it really difficult, or more difficult to like comprehend, plan, focus, think about things. And so, our clients are in that space too. And we have to remember, like, the simplest and most direct way that we can get across, like, this is what I've just told you. This is the next step. This is how you use this. Like, we don't want to just be like assuming that our potential clients or our audience are just going to make these like big mental leaps, or they just can read our minds and like know what's coming next. We have to make it simple, make it easy, make it direct, because we have these incredible solutions, these incredible methodologies, these incredible gems. We just need to deliver them more easily. I feel like, I mean, you and I both lived through the entrepreneurial, I don't know what you want to call it, but wave of like 2020. It kind of started in like 2018 and it was like 2020, where being mysterious in your business was like all the rage, right? Like, do you remember this?
That was that was literally so I started
It's
this business
ruined
in
us. Like, it's
2019. Oh yeah.
we got to
That
fix
was
it.
that was fucking crazy. Like
Yeah.
I remember, so I started my business in 2019, and that was like
Yeah,
it
me
was like
too. Yeah.
manifestation boom, like manifest
Yeah.
this, and then it was, oh, 10K months, and now it's 100K months,
Yeah,
and then
100K
it's
months.
mysterious this, and it was, and then all of a sudden we get into the pandemic, which was wild. People had all the time in the world to sit at their computer and do
Yep.
certifications and programs,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden it just shifted, and then we went into this massive trust deficit. And I
Yes.
see a lot less screenshots about how much money people are making, because that
Yeah.
just does not represent like what's actually coming or happening behind the scenes.
It's
So
true.
that was a
Mhm.
wild time. And I look
Yeah.
back, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I survived that, just barely, but
It's
still.
crazy, I know. And like for a minute there, I also bought into the just like, oh, just like sell with your energy. But I'm like you. I've come to the conclusion that if I want a sustainable business that works and runs smoothly, that makes sense, that's easy for people to, access, it's accessible. Like, I'm not here to just be on a mountaintop, and just work with five people a year. Like, that's just not my vibe. I want this work to get to people. If I want it to get to people, I need to have that structure and I need to be clear. And I don't want this to be mysterious. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want it to be hard to like find to access the wisdom and the insight that I have to give. And I think that if anyone listening is like, yeah, me too, like I want my work to be supportive to people out there, then this your system of center, path, and constraint is just so important. Like, even if someone is not listening, who's not a structure person, like I'm definitely more of an ideas person than a structure person, although I can turn it on when I need to. Saturn on the midheaven. But this is what we need to make our businesses more stable, more grounded. Yeah, love it.
Yeah. I think that that piece, like the structure piece, like I just want to say, like people have a
Yeah,
hard time with it
yeah.
because it takes a level of commitment and responsibility to hold that. But the thing is, like, if you don't put structure into your business in the way that we're talking about in this
Mhm.
conversation, you will continue to hold chaos. Like
Yeah, can
it,
you speak on that a little more? Like, what does it look like when you meet a founder and you can tell they have like so much like wisdom, potential, like insight, but like they are not grounded in their business. Like what are the symptoms?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
There's there's some clients I've worked with who they've been in the industry for 30 years.
Mm.
They've written 12 books. They've
Yeah.
spoken on stage. They've signed clients that pay over six figures a year to work with them. Like they know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
And when I came in to support them, the back end everything was just very reactive. Like they tried to start a YouTube channel. There's like multiple YouTube channels. They wanted to start a podcast. There's, things on their website were not up to date. Like everything that was happening in their business was a result of them either having a conversation with someone, but there
Mhm.
was nothing actually holding them. And they were like, okay, we need to define our offers because we don't know what to talk about right now. And I'm like, you haven't claimed the center of your business
Mm.
as that being your gravitational pull to you building everything else around it. If you
Mhm.
want to start a podcast and you want to be clear about your work and your partner's work, you need to have separate LinkedIn's. You need to delete the rest. Like you need to have one channel, delete the rest. So that's where the constraint comes in. And I'm
Mm.
coming in and cutting things off
Yeah.
because I'm like, how are you supposed to hold all of this? Like, where's all your passwords and your logins and this, that, and the other? You want to bring in a team member and you're kind of like throwing things at them. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, you want a business to hold you, yet you're the one that's holding the fucking business with duct tape right now. You
Yeah.
have to admit that it's not working,
Mm.
absorb that, and take the time that it takes to rebuild this so it actually holds you and you can live your life and go off on the weekends and not worry about what's happening and then come back on Monday to like an anthill
Yeah.
of emails and everything to get through. And so I think that a lot of people, and I think this happened, during that boom of like
Yeah.
2018 to
Mhm.
2022, where a lot of people had a lot of success and they were making multiple six figures a year and they were selling, multiple
Mhm.
five-figure packages and all this, and they didn't have the infrastructure in the back end to hold that.
Nope.
Actually, in 2022, I was working for someone, I was on their team, and I was getting paid multiple four figures to be on their team to support them. And all of a sudden, because they lacked the structure in their business, things tanked over a couple of months. They let go of the entire team because she was like, I actually can't pay you.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
she
I've
couldn't
heard this
even,
story several times. Yeah,
and
some of
she
the big
couldn't
names. Yeah,
totally,
it's
and
tough.
she couldn't say why things weren't working. And that's
Mhm.
because you don't have a structure in place. When you have a structure, you know where the bottleneck is. She
Yeah.
did not have a structure. I experienced that. I was like, that's fucking crazy.
Mhm.
And so just because you're making money doesn't mean that you're secure. You need to have something to hold it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like yeah, definitely. You're preaching to the converted here. I'm that person who I just loved having fun in my business from like when I started it like 2020 to 2022 was just like let's do stuff, let's play, let's have fun, let's try this, let's try this. And it worked really well because I had energy and all that. And then, there's some personal, things that needed to happen that I needed to put energy into, need to focus on my health, focus on, my family, etc. And then I was like, oh crap. Like I don't have the structure. And so the last like year and a half really I've been streamlining. Like you said, did you say something about bringing a machete in and like
Oh
we don't need
yes.
this, we don't need this. And that's exactly right. And I've been streamlining and it feels so good like for people who worry that this is going to take the magic out of their business. I just want to assure you it will not. It will open up. It's like decluttering your house, right? Like I'm a maximalist, okay? Like I love lots of tchotchkes. Like even like look, this is my I just I have my crystals, I have my room spray. Like I love my tchotchkes, I love all my stuff, but I cannot be a maximalist in my business, and I don't think that it's a good idea for anyone to do that because you actually need to channel your creativity. You need to focus it, hone it like a laser, and it can be more powerful. So yeah, I just want to also say it's not going to kill the magic to have some structure. It's actually going to open up like so much more space. Don't you? Would you
Yes.
agree? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It holds it. I think that's the thing is that it holds it rather than just like, if you just have an idea and you just say it out loud and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
it's like if you have an idea, you say it out loud and you're like, oh, this can be an email, this can be a post, this can be like part of my methodology, then suddenly it continues to exist
Yeah.
in what it is that you're building in terms of your business. But if you just like, just be like farts, like if you just let it rip and you
Yeah.
don't have somewhere for it to go, like it's just gonna disappear.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
You
Exactly. And
gotta
now
contain it.
I feel like, with a more streamlined offers, and I'm also figuring out like my sales structure and things like that, and just honing everything. It's like honing everything down. I am opening up so much more space to do more creative projects. Like my card deck that I've been talking about for ages, the book I want to write, like, the traveling and being on a guest on podcasts that I want to do. There's so many other things like products, I just have a million ideas and there's no place for them if things are messy behind the scenes. So,
Yes.
yeah, we're going to tidy up the mess. It is spring, Taurus is the middle of spring in the northern hemisphere. So, we're going to tidy it up. We're going to, get grounded, get stable, and go work with Kehla G because she knows what she's doing. So I love this. Is there anything else you want to say about this topic before we close for the today? Anything else? A
I think
starting point? Anywhere that people really need to, yeah, get started?
Yeah, I think that well the gift that I'm going to give is it's a little short podcast series called the Structural Instability series. So
Oh,
it's
amazing.
very connected to what we talked about today. I think that's a great place to start if you're like, okay, what is she saying? Center path constraint. I need to understand this better. Like there's
Yeah.
something here. You feel the pull. Download this, listen to it because
Hmm.
it will help you see things differently. Because honestly, once you can see this, you
Hmm.
can't unsee it. It's
Yeah.
not the same conversation that everyone's having around offers, niche, ideal client. It's not that. This is
Hmm.
so different. And
Mm.
I'm really excited to share about this. So I just wanted to say if people feel like, oh my God, this conversation, I feel like it just got started, it will continue. So
Yeah,
that's the
there's so
gift
much
that
more
I
to
want to give.
say. Yeah, and I want to have you back on the podcast again as well. And one last thing that I know we didn't talk too much about, like we could go on for hours. Like I know we could. I know we didn't talk too much about like Gene Key's human design astrology, but do you want to say anything about also how this methodology can also be tailored? Because I think something that a lot of people are afraid of is like, oh, I just learned all this about my human design or about my Gene Keys, but is this going to override how I'm meant to work or something like that?
Yes.
I think this is the beauty of working with people like us is that we know how to tailor and personalize everything to people. You're not just going to get a cookie cutter. You're going to learn, okay, how to structure work for me, I would
Yes.
assume. Is there anything you want to say about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a great question. So, one of the things that I want people to realize, and I see this often where I'll have someone come into my DMs like, Kayla, I'm a 4/6 emotional projector, da da da. This is what I do. And, quad right, all the things. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay. And then they tell me what's going on in their business. And they think that they need to be more in alignment with their design for their business to work. And the big thing that I speak to often is that you cannot solve structural issues through alignment of your design. And so what
Mm.
happens sometimes when I work with people is the beginning of the conversation and support will be more about the structural components. And then it's like, okay, this is the center of your work. Now let's talk about your pearl sequence because this is how you're designed to be of service. But you need to be clear on how you want that center to look to even know what you're going to put inside of it. So I think that that's something that what always comes first for me is the structural piece so that your brilliance can be held. And I think
Mm.
sometimes people try to like build around their brilliance first and it's like you need a bowl before you can put the cereal in the milk. You can't just if you have the cereal in the milk like in no bowl, it's just what are you going to do with it, right? You're only going to eat one Cheerio at a time.
That's
So
a
I
good
think that
analogy. I think that's a really good analogy. Yeah, I like that.
yeah, I think that that's something that I just want people to realize that sometimes you kind of have to put the energetics down for a minute because you need a floor to stand on before you
Hmm.
can even continue with that conversation.
Yeah.
But it's never it gets to be both, but there's just a bit of sequencing that needs to happen first. And I think that that's what I want people to know. You just got to be patient with the timing and the sequencing of things.
Hmm. I like that a lot. I think sometimes, yeah, we can use cosmic insight and almost weaponize it against ourselves and end up self-sabotaging from, something that we heard, right? Like, for example, I have some reflector clients and I think it can be very easy for people to say, well, I have inconsistent energy or I'm not living in the perfect environment, therefore I don't think I can be successful. And it's like, it's almost, I think, in a lot of ways, a self protection, Whereas what you're saying is, no, no, let's create the safe container. Let's create that the structure and the stability that we need. This is very Saturnian. I love what we're sharing here. But let's create the safe container, and then all the magic can live within it and flow and be protected. So yeah, we can have both. It's great.
Yes.
Yeah. So good. I love it. This conversation is so good. We could go on and on, but I really appreciate you coming here and sharing this with us. I think this will be a really light bulb moment for a lot of us. I know I'm really inspired to go away. I'm already creating a mind map of like my center in my mind. So I can't wait to go away and really think about these things. So thank you. You've given us a lot to chew on. How can people find you, and what do you have coming up? I know you mentioned your podcast series. We'll put all the links in the show notes. Anything else you want to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the podcast series, grab that. It's going to continue on this conversation. I mentioned a couple times in our conversation the signal report. So
Yes.
this is me specifically giving a diagnostic perspective and telling you what your center path and constraint needs to be in order for you to move things forward in your business. So you can come in with a couple questions of like where you're seeing the bottleneck, and I'm going to support you. And I bring in human design and gene keys into this as well. So it's like a perfect
Yes.
example of our conversation today. I'm on Instagram, Kehla G, just at Kehla G, my website, kehlag.com. And then, of course, the podcast Built for the Edge. You can find me on there. And I'm on Substack as well. So there's a couple different places. And
Yes.
you will see that what I am saying is happening in all the places simultaneously.
Yeah, you are
So
walking your talk. You are doing it. Yeah. Oh, so good. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. I'm really excited for what people are going to go and create and the clarity they're about to get. Taurus season is a great time for everyone to just slow down. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's get that big picture view so that we can go and make the magic and create the things that we are heart aligned with and ambitious for, right? I love it. Thank you so much, Kayla. Bye.